Okay, let's go ahead and get this meeting started. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order at exactly 1 o'clock. Ms. Barboa, will you please do roll call?
Jeffrey Anthony.
Present.
Catherine Arvizu.
Present.
Don Bell. Cindy Coleman. Luis Gonzalez.
Here.
Red Morrow.
Here.
Raghu Nandan. Peter Nordquist.
Here.
Tiffany Rogers.
Here.
Delio Sotelo.
Here.
Sophia Blue.
Here.
Erica Miranda Carter.
Present.
Slide it towards.
Okay, moving on to agenda adjustments. Does anybody have any agenda adjustments? No? No? Okay, moving on to call to the audience. Ms. Barboa, do we have any call to the audience?
We have not received any.
No. All righty then, moving on now to, is that the executive session? So I motion to convene to the executive session meeting. Second? Second by Ms. Arvizu. Do we take a vote? Yeah, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay, good. Go ahead and turn your microphones off.
So the committee, we're going to have you go into the library. If you can just follow me out, and then everybody else, we will be back shortly.
Our first executive session.
I know. Exciting.
Okay, so at this time, we'd like to reconvene our regular meeting. Moving on to item 6.01, approval to recommend to the governing board a new member to the Bond Oversight Committee. And I forgot his name. Okay, at this, we're going to take a vote, right?
Yeah.
Do we need a motion? Where's his name? Okay, so may I have a motion to recommend Owen Brosanders?
So moved. I'll second.
Motion by Ms. Blue, second by Ms. Arvizu. Ms. Yolanda, Ms. Barboa, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Jeffrey Anthony.
Yes.
Catherine Arvizu.
Yes.
Don Bell.
Yes.
Cindy Coleman. Oh, I'm sorry, she's not here. Luis Gonzalez.
Aye.
Red Morrow.
Yes.
Peter Nordquist.
No.
Tiffany Rogers.
Yes.
Delio Sotelo.
Yes.
Sophia Blue.
Yes.
Erica Miranda Carter.
Yes. Motion passes to recommend Owen Brosanders to the governing board. Ms. Barboa, do we need to state anything regarding the charter change? Do we need to state anything regarding the charter change? Do we need to wait to make sure? Just wait on that. Okay. All righty then. Okay, moving on to item 6.02, approval to recommend to the governing board the cooperative contract and proposal for the installation of window security film at TUSD school campuses. We did request from from committee members to submit your questions to Dr. Carter. Any further questions that we had regarding the film? Dr. C?
All right. Good afternoon, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Afternoon.
Hello. So I understand a question.
Yes. Yeah, that's correct. So I was wondering if I could just ask for some clarification about who did assessments and how. And I appreciate us being invited to submit questions and for the responses that we already received. But in the case of the window laminate specifically, there's one thing I'm confused about. So in the September 24th meeting, It was stated that the TUSD team isn't qualified to do an assessment of the security systems. And then in the meeting before the one 2 days ago, so that was the last meeting in October, it was mentioned that another company had been asked to do an assessment, but I don't think that there was much detail that was gone into regarding that. And then when I asked my question about the assessment that had been done, the answer was that there was a 2022 assessment that had been done in Pinal County, which it being 2 years ago, I think that I have a little bit of a question about being able to rely on an assessment that was done that long ago and in another county. So that should be in the response that Ms. Barboa sent to us. So I'm wondering who did the assessments and how were they integrated? So since it was stated at the 24th meeting that the TUSD team isn't qualified to assess security systems, and I went back and I double-checked that in the recording. That would imply that you have to have someone from the outside doing it. And so the other two options that were provided for who did that were either the 2022 Pinal County assessment, or there was apparently another group that was brought in. So I wanted to ask for clarification about that.
And I appreciate the question.
Yeah.
Clearly this does need to be, a little more detailed in how these assessments were conducted. And I'll be honest, though, I'm not sure the reference to a 2022 Pinal County. I'm not.
It was in, so we were asked to submit questions, and they happened in two waves. The second wave involved asking about how an assessment had been done, and the response basically said that there was an assessment that was done in 2022 in Pinal County. It's in the email that we all received from Ms. Barboa.
It was a response to the procurement process.
Right.
question.
Right.
And the procurement process. So the Pinal County government, I think it was, Diana, or the Educational Service Agency.
Mm-hmm.
So the county school superintendent in Pinal County, they ran the procurement process through 1GPA, which is a cooperative purchasing group, and they ran an assessment as part of their procurement process.
Right.
So that's the assessment. We can't speak to that because that was part of their procurement. We obviously ran our assessment that is applicable to Tucson Unified. We're only using the contract and the pricing from the contract from 1GPA as a way to purchase this if you approve and the board approves.
Okay.
So that's what we're relying on.
Okay, so just to clarify then, because what I understood from the email, and maybe I misunderstood, was that we were relying on an actual assessment that was done in Pinal County. So that's not the case. So that narrows the question down, and I appreciate that answer. So was an assessment done by the TUSD team, or was it done by this other company, or was it a combination? Like, how did that work?
So the determination of which schools would needed the application of this film was conducted by the TUSD school safety team. Now, once that assessment was done, we basically identified the scope of work being the elementary schools, because historical knowledge shows that that's who is most in need of this, and I think I explained that historically. Then we brought in the company, Safe Haven Defense, and they helped conduct an assessment on the application of that film. Part of that assessment is basically, is the glass sufficient? That was a big part of it. Mm-hmm. And then utilizing, and having discourse with them in the approach to make sure that it was going to be satisfying the goals that we wanted to accomplish in securing our schools. So the assessment of which schools were going to be getting the film, that was TUSD school safety, right? Okay. And that's based on training, knowledge, experience that we have within our team. Now, bringing in the outside vendor, once we understood and procurement wasn't an issue, we can kind of engage with them further about, okay, how is this best applied to these specific schools?
Right. Okay. Well, so the other company that was mentioned, is it Pantheon? Was that their name? I think that's what was mentioned in the last.
We're conflating a couple things. So What we're talking about here is specific just to the application of the protective film that Safe
Right.
Haven Defense provides. We also went through, and this was presented to the governing board because it has nothing to do with the bond. These are not bond dollars being spent for a consultant that we're bringing in specific to technology. Now, that technology has to do with access control, camera systems, alarm systems, and various other systems specific to technology, not the application of this film. So two different things. We have, the whole purpose of this, right, is multi-layered approach to ensuring the safety of our schools. So we have various things going on, the technology being one, the application of this film another, gates and fences another. So.
Right, okay. So, so I guess I'm still wondering, how is it, so if you could explain to me maybe, because maybe this is why I'm not clear on, what was the scope of the assessment that was done by Pantheon? What was the scope that was done by TUSD and then by Safe Haven? Like,
So Pantheon has nothing to do with this, and that
Okay.
is something that's probably not appropriate to actually get into details about it because there's some other issues going on associated with that. And really, I would like the scope of this conversation to just being the Safe Haven Defense and the application of the window film, because that's what we're presenting to the to you all for approval.
okay.
So,
All right, so was there a relationship between the TUSD security team and Safe Haven before this? Had you worked with them previously, or?
no, not at all.
No, not at all.
Yeah,
Okay.
we brought them in solely for the purpose of the application of the film that they provide.
Okay, okay. So I appreciate your answers to that, Mr. Helms. The last concern of mine is that, and this doesn't involve just the safety film, but I feel like if there has been a comprehensive assessment that's been done, like if you do an assessment for safety, you want all the parts to interconnect properly, so everything can coordinate, talk to, one part can talk to another, and so on. And I don't feel like we've really been given a sufficient amount of information about how all of the different pieces fit together in terms of what should be prioritized, how everything will interconnect. So I'm not going to vote no on this, but I may abstain because I would like to see more information about the overall safety plan. I know that you're concerned about some things being proprietary. But I think it, being the Bond Oversight Committee, it would be both relevant and appropriate for us to be able to see more about the overall safety plan so that we know what we're voting on in terms of how all the pieces come together. So would it be possible to get information on the overall layout of the safety plan as we pursue future items?
Yeah, there's obvious concerns about exposing too much in a public forum associated with the mitigating efforts or prevention efforts that we put forth to ensure the safety of our students and staff. So I'm a little reluctant to kind of go into too much detail. Again, I would just state that we have conducted assessments on all of our schools. These are some international standards as far as kind of a layered approach, right? And it's not to kind of dumb it, what I will say real quick is just basically, again, layered approach, right? Furthest outside, fences and gates. You get closer to the school, window film preventing somebody from getting inside. Once you're inside, then we have security cameras. Now, there's a lot more involved in that, but that's kind of the basic approach, right? We're just trying to layer the approach, slow people getting down from being able to access our students and staff.
Okay. Well, thank you again. There is no way for us to really know what we don't know. Since it's at your discretion what you feel can be revealed publicly and privately. But at the same time, I just wanted to state that puts us at a disadvantage because the less we know, the more difficult it is to be able to make specific decisions.
And I understand your concern, but the security film, the pieces that we're bringing to you are actually in the bond book, and it's the things that were voted on for the voters. So I'm hoping that we can kind of concentrate on this at hand, and then, and later on as things are, because we do have the IT component, which has more of that, how it works with IT as far as cameras and intercoms and all that, how it fits. But what I can tell you is that I work for Tulsa Public Schools, and these are the same best practices we use.
Dr. Carter, I have a question. One of the other members had emailed asking about the K-8 schools, and we said only elementaries.
That's correct.
although they have little ones in those K-8 schools, why are we not including those schools in there?
Well, I guess, the assessment includes the elementary. It's a phased approach. It may be that later on we add other schools, but specifically, I mean, you have to start somewhere, and so that's where we elected to start with the elementaries.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any questions? Okay, so I'd like to move to approve the recommendation to the governing board for the security fund.
Second.
Second by Ms. Blue. Ms. Borbora, will you please do a roll call vote?
Jeffrey Anthony,
No.
Catherine Arvisu,
Yes.
Don Bell,
Yes.
Luis Gonzalez,
Abstain.
Red Morrow,
Yes.
Peter Norquist,
Abstain.
Tiffany Rogers,
Yes.
Delia Sotelo,
Yes.
Sophia Blue,
Yes.
Erica Miranda Carter.
Yes. Motion passes with 1 no and 2 abstain. Moving on to item 6.03, approval of bond oversight. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going backwards. Oh, yeah, it is bond oversight committee meeting, right? 6.3? Sorry, I lost my place for a second. Approval, I move to approve the bond oversight committee meeting minutes from October 17th.
Second?
May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Rogers. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Moving on to item 7.01, Dr. Carter, review of bond projects for quarter 2.
All right, if we can get that on the screen. I didn't want to spend a lot of time since we have so many items, but this is a quick one-pager of what the statuses are, so I will ask if there are any specific questions. Okay. All right. So can we go to the next, or do you need to?
That's it. Any questions, any discussion?
No?
Moving on to item 7.02, review of quarter 3 and 4. Oh, actually, was that one removed?
All right, we have a presentation if we can get on the screen.
7.04 and 7.02, what was added as 8 point? They're not, that wasn't the change? Okay, 7.02, review of quarter 3 and 4 bond project and priorities.
All right. So as you know, I've come before you a couple of times already for quarter 3 and 4. So as you know, we are always looking ahead. I always want to be thinking about, I'm actually thinking 5 years down the road, but I know we have to take baby steps. And so what I wanted to do is to look at quarter 3 and 4 together on some things, and let's kind of go on this journey together. Next, let's see, my slides work. So we're going to go over quarter 3 and 4, and these are proposed projects. And something I want to keep in mind is I'm trying to do what I believe the Bond Oversight Committee wanted, which is more information and a little bit more time. So that's why instead of just giving you everything and a whole bunch of presentations and say vote today, I've been doing an phased approach. So exactly what we talked about before, at least having 2 as much as possible, unless you decide 2 months where we review and then we can do action. But I think there are projects that you may agree that you may want to make a decision on today. Okay, so the ones that we have talked about, and we do have some presentations today, we keep talking and we'll be doing the HVAC and the energy management control systems as we've been doing. We are going to have a presentation today, or at least discuss about the HVAC kitchen retrofits, marquees. We have found out we have far far more schools that don't have marquees than we originally identified. So that will be an upcoming discussion. Domestic water line replacement, we have a presentation on that here today, and that's super important. I was made aware of the rainwater drainage at Carrillo, that we won't have that presentation this bond oversight committee, but in the future, we thank you for approving the security gates, fencing and gates, which went through the governing board, was that Tuesday? And so that was approved. We just discussed security window and films. You approved the CTE automotive program, and so that also was approved on Tuesday. Yay. We have a presentation today. Can you guys hear me okay? Mm-hmm. I feel like I'm whispering. Camp Cooper, we do have a presentation from Colin today. Replace portables with permanent structures. We worked super, super hard. I want you to know, Erica, to get this going, as well as fine arts projects, which we still haven't identified. Then the 1,000 Chromebooks or technology, we're still finalizing, and then the safety vehicles. Okay. That is the overview of what we're getting ready, or what we're really wanting us to discuss and talk about. So without further ado, I don't think we really need to vote.
Moving on to 8.01.
We got so many. I believe so. Let me see what's 8.01
Okay,
should
that's-
be.
8.01, review of health office upgrade
Yep.
bond proposal.
Yep, we are ready, and that's me. So another presentation. So as soon we get that in. This is a really exciting project too. Just thinking about, how we serve students, and that's what we're here for, what I'm here for, what you're here, how we serve students. I actually went and looked at a health office, and because I always kind of want to know what it is that we're proposing. I always try to go. And so I am going to talk about the background, the need, and the school impacted and the cost. So to make health offices, clinic ready to allow for additional healthcare services and partnerships. That's really the mission. And Dr. Gall does a great job. He's here today. He'll, if you have questions, we'll be able to discuss them. But here at Tucson Unified, we want to have healthcare level quality, cleanliness, and also treatment areas. And so we have a couple of pictures, hopefully you guys see. And we want to discuss the need. And this is, from my understanding, some updates that we've wanted for a while. And I'm really super happy that we can talk about and discuss if this is something that we can and should be doing. It is in the bond for health and safety upgrades. So ADA bathrooms, we want to ensure compliance with the ADA standards. The cabinetry allows for the locking of medication, and we know that's important. There's flooring that we want to replace or perhaps repair. Looking at the open floor plan, I did go to, Damon, where did we go yesterday? Pueblo. I mean, every day it seems like we're going somewhere, and looking at line of sight, and then the clinic appropriate workstations. And there are a number of other things that Dr. Gall would like to do and standardize, but what we did, as we're doing all the time, is doing the priorities, the things that we can do within our budget. So what schools are we talking about? We talking about, and here I get to say all these words, I might skip words, but Saharo, Pueblo, Palo Verde, and Cholla. Did I say it right? Cholla. Mm-hmm. I did it right. Yay! And we selected these schools, or really Dr. Gauss selected these schools based on need. Now, one of the things that I mentioned to you is that we're starting preparation for summer school. And we're wanting to make sure that we know ahead of time what impacts are going to be happening for schools. So what we're trying to do is meet with the various schools and the leaders, so as they're preparing for summer school, we know what the impacts are. So in the case of the health office upgrades, we need to do these updates where we don't have any office staff in there. So we've already started, met with the region assistant superintendents 2 weeks ago to discuss this whole concept, not just health upgrades, but all these summer projects that if we get this approved, what are the impacts in the district? What do we need to do to still be able to provide services, but also get the work done? And so with all of these, Dr. Gall and the regional assistant superintendent said that we can relocate within that school. So it doesn't have to be where that service is not, provided even during the summer, which that's when we are expecting to do this, is in June. We want to use June to actually do the implementation. So we're gonna, assuming it passes, we want to, order all the equipment, have that available. But June is the targeted time frame to do the health upgrades. The estimated cost for the health upgrades is about $65,000 per school. And so the overall estimated total cost would be $260,000. My eyes are failing me. $260,000. So I'm open for questions.
I have a question, and my question is, and I know you say go slow to go fast, right? This is just 4 schools, and we have over 80 schools in this district, and I feel like almost all of them were allocated health office upgrades in the bond. I know we have a long timeline, but it's a short timeline. And so if you break this up into every summer doing 4 schools, there's not a chance in heck that we'll ever meet the 10-year timeline to get these completed. And so I may be being overzealous and impatient, but I feel like I'm becoming concerned about timeline for completion for projects. And I'm becoming concerned timeline for completions for projects because, like, this is 4. And I would like to see all high schools, frankly. And I don't know who will be doing this work and if it's a contractor issue or not. But that's sort of where my concern lies for this.
Yeah, good observations. And that's what I'm here for, is to look at those things and look at it over not just this, but the whole thing. And so I would say that we need to look at what we can handle this summer.
Right.
We're at capacity, trust me, what we can do with, if you approve all the projects that I've proposed, we're at capacity of what we can do with quality. Okay, so I hear what you're saying as far as the number, but it's not just, and you can validate this with me, it's not just summer. We can also do this at other breaks. But we missed our break already that we were wanting to do it, which was Christmas time.
Right.
So again, at this point, I'm gonna go all the way out to come all the way back in. But in general, because we are really emphasizing just upgrades, we're not doing cutting edge things here. We're just trying to, same thing with domestic water line. Every school, well, almost every, I think it was 75 schools for domestic water line. That's gonna be tough in 10 years to do, but that's what we're working on. So it is to go slow to go fast. So when we start doing more at a time, we have less problems, and we have learned what it takes to be able to get orders in, all that kind of thing. So that's already taken in consideration, but this is what we can do right now. We can't do.
Is it part of, like, a self-imposed constraint of doing projects quarterly?
We do, well,
So
it's
like
not.
this is what I'm saying. Like if we were to say, okay, I want to approve health office upgrades for all high schools in the district and have it be completed before summer 26, like is that crazy? Is that like?
Well, can I chime in here?
Yeah,
I
sorry.
get what you're saying, and I totally support that, but at the same time, looking at the list of recommended projects, we have a lot of other projects happening at other schools, like,
Right.
you know.
There's a ton. Like
So
I
get
totally
what
agree.
Dr.
Yeah.
Carter's saying, you know, they're at max because while this school may not be getting health office renovations, they may be doing portable construction, or they may doing, so, yeah, I get, I think we
it's-
need to be conservative.
And it's the
This-
constraints of the district because we're doing summer school and we're doing all these other things. So I would say, yes, I am looking at the whole picture, but at this time, 6 months in, this is where we are. And so to better ensure that we're successful, let's get a few under our belt, as we've done with all the other things,
Agreed.
right?
Agreed.
And then, is it possible to go out 5 years and say, get everything done? It's possible, but as you know, the conditions of our society are changing every day. One of the things that Ricky and I are thinking about is tariffs and just all kinds of things. So just know that, yes, it's being considered. I'm asking you guys to trust me a little bit. I've delivered so far. We will get there. And I would say quarters is something I came up with because that works best with the environment I'm in at this time.
Okay.
Because remember, not only are we executing projects, we're creating process, policy, and procedure. That doesn't happen overnight. I've been here 7 months. So we'll get there. And what I would like to do, and something I've talked to Ricky about, is, you know, going out 5 years. But I can't go out 5
No, we don't
years.
have to go out 5 years. I just said like one.
But
Yeah.
again, I have to be 5 years, whether you're 1 year or not.
sure.
But even the concept of bringing all these projects and asking people to change summer school plans is new here. I mean, Blaine, I don't know, he left. But Blaine, we had a repeatable process we did every year. And so now they see that to ensure to get certain projects done, we have to work together and coordinate and be a little bit inconvenienced. So it's happening. Okay. Any other questions?
Any other questions for Dr. Carter? No? So I'd like to move.
It's fine.
Oh,
It's fine.
that's not that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Go ahead.
No question?
I want to hear.
No, I don't have a question. I was going to make a comment.
Oh, the floor is yours.
you're
You
good.
got it. Okay. So I motion to approve the recommendation for the health office upgrades. Is there a second?
I will second.
Second. I just said these two. Ms. Borbora, can we do a roll call vote, please?
Jeffrey Anthony,
Yes.
Catherine Arbizu,
Yes.
Don Bell,
Yes.
Luis Gonzalez,
Aye.
Red Morrow,
Yes.
Peter Norquist,
Yes.
Tiffany Rogers,
Yes.
Delia Sotelo,
Yes.
Sophia Blue,
Yes.
Erica Miranda Carter.
Yes, motion passes. Okay, moving on to 8.02, review and recommend to the governing board the prioritization of HVAC retrofits from evaporative cooling to air conditioning in school kitchens.
Okay, thank you. I'm here again. But we have Lindsay, and I'm just going to give a high level overview and then let her speak because she is the queen of the child nutrition and food services. So again, HVAC is a topic, right, for Tucson Unified. And when we did our initial package units for the 14 we did in Q1, you guys remember? Because we are trying to get as much done as possible, and the design of the HVACs for kitchens takes a while. It's not like a take out and put in. And we wanted to do this correctly and right and give it the time and design that it needs. So now we're coming back with the first four of the package units of the 14 that we did originally, and now wanting to give or provide HVAC, package HVACs for those systems. We have identified Blendman, Davis, Robbins, and Robeson to be those units. This was information that we got feedback from Lindsay herself. We also are, as we have promised, I think that was Jeffrey that mentioned, are we looking at other funding sources? And so we have submitted all of the 14 package units that we did initially to the SFB, the School Facilities Board. So that's a process within itself, waiting to see if you get funding. So we don't want to stop, but we are doing little small chunks. First of all, because it takes a long time, the design and the full concept and all that. But the other thing is, if we can get money outside of using the bond funds to extend the bond funds, that we're going to do so. So this is what we're proposing. It's going to be about $350,000 per school. And we were, basically, if we do and get approved the first 4, then it'd be 1.4 million. Lindsay?
Thank you. I appreciate your consideration in this request. Just a little background, we have 40 of our 87 schools that currently have EVAP, so this is definitely something that will be coming back. Speaking to what you were saying about doing more, we definitely have more to do. But obviously the environment that our staff that comes to work every day to feed our kids, having the air conditioning is much needed, in addition to food storage. So if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Can you tell us anything about the energy management systems, or lack thereof, that would be involved in these?
I will probably refer to Mr. Meyer on the EMS, energy, or Damon. Thank you.
So the MCS controls will be also integrated as part of the overall system on the site, so that we have visual of the temperatures inside each of the cafeterias that are getting renovated, basically. So there will be MCS controls as part of the overall package, so that we have visuals at each site that are being renovated.
Okay. What is the scope of the visualization?
So basically what it does is it allows our HVAC techs to take a look at the temperatures in real time and take a look at making sure that they're in our targeted range of 76 degrees plus or minus 2 degrees. And that's going to obviously fluctuate inside of a cafeteria,
Sure.
depending on all the types of equipment you have in there. So
Okay.
it allows us to manage that piece in basically a lab.
Okay. Does anyone outside of TUSD have visibility on
No,
that
just
information?
our techs,
And-
our
and-
HVAC techs.
And within TUSD, the HVAC techs, how are they able to access that information?
So they come on in, it's basically a standard system. They come in, they'll log on onto the TSD network, and then they have basically an overview of all the sites throughout the district that are on EMCS controls, and that's how they manage the temperatures at each of the sites.
Right, okay, and they're able to do that remotely?
Yes.
Right, okay. All right, I appreciate your answers,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Ballesteros. I'm also in commiseration with you. I've been having some trouble with my voice, too.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Ms. Bell, did you have a question?
I just feel like that's a really high price. Can somebody explain why $350,000 for HVAC seems like, I just had HVAC put in at my house and it was nowhere, I mean,
No,
it's
it's a great
$10,000.
question. No, great question. And the biggest difference is you have to design the space inside of a kitchen, and every kitchen is unique because every kitchen has different types of stoves, ovens, so not every kitchen is alike. So you have to design it so that you address, the heat transfer from the equipment. You got to take the load management of the equipment, design it, take a look at the space that you're utilizing. Then you have to provide makeup air. So the makeup air is how you transfer that heat outside to the space to then cool the space. So there's a lot of integral parts that are totally different than your standard HVAC unit. And I would say the HVAC piece that you just experienced is very similar to what we did in phase one, to where you take a unit off and you put a new unit on, turn it on, and you're good. The biggest difference here is we can't do that because you have to size it for the space, heat transfer, duct sizing, the loading. There's a lot of pieces and components that take place, and the makeup air is one of the bigger areas because the makeup air is what sucks the heat out and brings in your cooler air in. So it is expensive. So we've done probably 4 or 5 recently with the State Facilities Department, and that's where we came in with that number of 350. And each, like I said, each site is different depending on the footprint. Some kitchens are a lot smaller than others, so the amount of the costs associated is going to be a little different as you get into bigger, spaces like high schools and middle schools. So the functionality of the kitchen is then comes into play into those costs.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry, can I ask one more quick question that I forgot earlier? Still on the topic of the energy management systems, when we discussed this topic in a previous meeting, it was my understanding that there were 2 different vendors involved, one for the HVAC themselves and one for the energy management system. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So our facilities, with the procurement department, selected through a procurement process, 2 vendors for the MCS controls to use throughout TUSD.
Right. Okay. So you do have 2 separate parts that ultimately need to
Yes.
come together through the 2 vendors. Okay. All right. Great. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Gonzalez?
My question is a little bit more on the fiscal side. Prior to this meeting, we had already prioritized HVAC for a number of facilities. Are we encumbered based on the proposal for the bond? Have we encumbered all of that money for HVAC? And if so, where would this money be coming from? The 1.4 million.
So we have a total amount that we have. And as we talked about before, I think Ricky did a presentation that on the HVAC that we are over because of basically inflation, number of things. So what we have to do is we have to take from some other projects, other priorities to complete overall what our main priorities are. So that's why we're making sure that the things that were voted upon as far as what the most concerning from the voters was the HVAC, safety and security, and then the improving or upgrading the classroom spaces. So we still need to do this. It's just that we have to find other savings or other efficiencies or other projects that we have to make sure that our main projects that we're getting those done.
Well, that's precisely where I was going. At one of our meetings here, I think Mr. Hernandez noted that we were in a deficit. I forget exactly how much that was, 7 million or 17?
So let me just clarify, the bond fund is not in a deficit. Okay, so the totality of the fund is not in a deficit spending situation because it's a cash only and we can only spend the cash that's there.
Mm-hmm.
What we've discovered is that based on the Q1 expenditures, there are about $17 million in overages based on what we estimated in the bond book that was presented to the voters compared to the reality of what happened when we actually went out and procured the systems. Now, to your question as to are we encumbering these funds? Absolutely. The way any functional financial management system will work is as you approve and the board gives us the authority based on your recommendation, we will encumber the funds. So those funds are no longer available because they've now been set aside, for example, for these units and so on. So we are tracking those. Those are encumbering. They are essentially coming off our books. And as dollars are released, as expenses are go from being encumbered to actually being posted, then those dollars then kind of go back and become available to the entire bond. But I want to assure you, the entire bond is not over. It's not over expended.
I understand that. Thank you. Going back to Dr. Carter's comment here just a second ago, where you are reprioritizing, I suppose, those projects that you're going to be kind of robbing from Peter to pay Paul here to fund these projects. Is that what you were saying? Or did I misunderstand you?
I wouldn't say robbing Peter to pay Paul necessarily. Basically, we have $480 million. We've expended about $30 million. So we have, the leftover of the $450 million. So we basically are going to use our priorities, and they help that guide us to what we're spending money on. So there may be some things, as we mentioned before, that may not get done, but we're going to make sure that the three things we talked about, HVAC, we talked about the classroom improvements, and we talked about safety. And so as I'm bringing things before you, those are the emphases that we're using.
So are you anticipating some of those projects may not get done?
That's what I'm saying. It's possibility. But remember, we're 6 months into a 10-year bond. A lot can change in that time.
I understand that, Dr. Carter. What I'm trying to get to is we as a committee would like to see some information as to what projects you think may not get done early enough to be able to make adjustments.
Yeah. I mean, so we're not sure. There's over 1,700 projects. We are prioritizing and getting a feel for the ones we think that are most important, but we need, more time to be able to predict and assess a 10-year bond when we're 6 months in. So you'll get information as we move forward, but we're not ready to say what may not get done because, again, the predictions, tariffs, there's so many, as you know, variables when you're trying to calculate costs. And so and then there's other variables within schools that can change. So eventually we'll get that, but we're not there yet.
Let me just
I
interject.
understand that, and I'm hoping that you do give us information in a timely manner so that we can evaluate that.
Absolutely.
I will tell you what, I don't want to be sitting here and rubber stamping everything that's coming through here without having the proper information to make an informed decision.
And I think that's the point of us. We've been talking about the Q3 things like 2 months. So that's what that whole process is. And then you have, so that is what you exactly asked for. That's what we're doing. But we got to get past this, and then we'll do more.
Thank you.
I would just hate to, as a committee, or have Dr. Carter present to us and say, this school's not getting this. I think that is disheartening to sites who have aspirations for it. And like you just explained with the kitchen HVAC units, there may be other funding sources that you guys are doing very due diligence on, I think, of being able to fund things outside of the bond. And so just to say you're not getting this because we can't afford it doesn't necessarily mean it's not happening. And so I would hate to stamp something. I would hate to have this committee stamp something to say that when it's so far into the future and there's so many unknowns. Like, I would rather not.
Yeah. All right.
Any further questions? Okay, so I move to recommend to the governing board, or actually, may I have a second?
Second.
Yeah, second by Mr. Jeffries. So at this time, let's take a vote to approve and recommend to the governing board the prioritization of HVAC retrofits from evaporative cooling to air conditioning in school kitchens. Ms. Barbara, would you please do a roll call vote?
Jeffrey Anthony,
Yes.
Catherine Arbizu,
Yes.
Don Bell,
Yes.
Luis Gonzalez,
Aye.
Red Morrow,
Yes.
Peter Norquist,
Abstain on the reason that I continue to be concerned about the security aspect of the EMS. otherwise being alive to the need for this in the kitchens.
Tiffany Rogers,
Yes.
Delia Sotelo,
Yes.
Sophia Blue,
Yes.
Erica Miranda Carter.
Yes. Motion passes with one abstain. Moving on to item 8.03, review and recommend to the governing board the Camp Cooper cabin upgrades and contingent fire hydrants bond proposal.
All right, we have the honor and privilege to have the director of Camp Cooper, Colin Wade, here to do his presentation. Colin.
Thank you, Dr. Carter. Good afternoon, bond committee members. Thank you so much for the time and energy that you're putting into this process. Thank you to our TUSD staff members for being involved as well. My name is Colin Waite. I'm the director of the Cooper Center for Environmental Learning, known to many folks as Camp Cooper. This is my 21st year at the center. I'm joined today by members of our volunteer facilities committee, our architects from Swaim Associates, Mark and Valerie, Earl Mendenhall, past bond committee chair 20 years ago, and Ray Clemens from Natural Building Works. They've all been assisting us with designs for our facility upgrades. Just to kind of set things up, I'll give a real quick background on Camp Cooper. We have a facility master plan that includes several phases, of which the proposal that we're bringing before you is one phase. And so I'll talk a little bit about that, how this meets our needs and goals for the facility. We'll talk about the costs, and then I'll be happy to answer questions. Camp Cooper, or the Cooper Center, is a program that connects children and learners of all ages with the wonders of the Sonoran Desert. Our facility is about 20 minutes west of here in the Tucson Mountains, and all of our programs are immersive experiences that teach kids the ecology of the Sonoran Desert while also building positive emotional connections with the world that we live in, with a goal of having them live more lightly and sustainably on our planet. Over 90% of the students that we serve in our programs are Title I, including our TUSD schools. And so for many of them, it's their first opportunity to experience the desert in an authentic way. We operate the center as a partnership between Tucson Unified School District, who owns the facilities and manages the maintenance and utilities, and the University of Arizona College of Education, which manages the staffing and operations. The partnership has existed since 2008, and we are under an intergovernmental agreement that continues through 2039. Over 3,000 pre-K through 12 students experience Camp Cooper every year with our programs, 80% of which are Tucson Unified students. The other 20% is for other schools outside of Tucson Unified School District. They pay a higher cost for programs to have the opportunity to participate. We also do experiential learning and research with University of Arizona students, faculty, and staff. And our facilities are also used for special events, teacher professional development, meetings and workshops and retreats. We want to be able to have Camp Cooper be more utilized within Tucson Unified School District and by the broader community. Currently, based on our facilities, which have not seen any major upgrades in 50 years, our season is the middle of September to the middle of May. We don't do any summer programming at the center itself. We want to be able to use the facility year-round. That would allow us to serve more students. We don't want to increase the number of kids that are coming out on any given day because the desert is a fragile place. We don't want to impact the environment in a more larger way, but we want to have more days available for field trip experiences. We also have worked really hard to have Camp Cooper be an accessible facility for differently abled kids and adults. And so many of our facility proposals, including things that are included in the bond, are to increase the accessibility of our pathways and the buildings themselves so that they can be used by everyone. And our proximity to town allows us to be really accessible for folks to get out to. We also want TUSD and Camp Cooper itself to serve as a sustainable model for the community. What better place than the environmental education facility to showcase rainwater harvesting, solar energy use, different building techniques and materials, so that people can see when they go through our programs or when they visit the center what's possible for their home or their school or their business. And so everything from energy conservation and natural resource conservation to the construction materials we use and the practices that go into the buildings themselves and the programs that we do. And all of the facility improvements will be incorporated into our programs. So our team will work on curriculum development with the folks in the Tucson Unified Curriculum Department to have the facilities be part of what we teach so that they understand how those systems work. One thing that I did not put on here, but that is an opportunity for us as well, is a facility like Camp Cooper is very attractive for facility rentals. We do a small number of rentals now, but because our facility is very old and very rustic, it's limited. And so when we are not doing educational programs during school holidays, on weekends, we have an opportunity to rent the facility as an additional source of revenue for the district and for the camp. This is our current project, which was originally included in the bond package, which is sustainable bathrooms and accessible pathways. We were able to fund this entire project, $2.5 million, with philanthropic funds. And so this project is actually in the final week. We did a ribbon cutting on Saturday, and our staff will be taking over use of the facility. So thank you to the incredible donors throughout our community that have allowed this process to happen. Included in this project is also the accessible pathway that connects our bathrooms area to our amphitheater and to the entrance to the camp. That pathway was also included in the bond. And so by taking those elements out of the bond package, Luis, this kind of speaks to one of the concerns that you just brought up. We will not need bond funds for that particular project anymore. And so our hope is that we're able to use those to deal with inflation and other cost concerns related to our other projects. So the project that we're bringing before you tonight, is renovation of our sleeping cabins. I know that many of you have been to Camp Cooper. Our cabins are as basic as they come: no heating and cooling, no insulation, very low electrical needs. And so our upgrade process addresses those concerns. Insulation using sustainable materials for energy efficiency, solar panels to offset any additional energy loads, addition of heating and cooling, new windows and doors both for safety and for comfort in the buildings. Each building will get a new roof. I've been there for 20 years. We've never had new roofs. It's time for new roofs. Shaded outdoor gathering spaces, rainwater harvesting for shade trees and other vegetation, and then interactive educational systems so that we can both at camp and at the schools monitor what's happening with our sustainable systems. This is a picture of the interior of the camp spaces. Currently, we do not have real beds at Camp Cooper. We have pallets. So the roof will be raised up 2 feet to allow for those bunk beds. It will also make it more attractive as a rental space. And again, insulation, heating, and cooling so that we can use the facility year-round. This is our bid from Chase Building. They are the ones who have completed our current project with the bathrooms and showers and accessible pathways. So our estimated cost for the sleeping cabins project is $3,234,000 that sounds not enough. So there's an extra comma in there. $3,234,853. We do have an additional request as part of this project. In the process of going through safety review of the facility, there is no fire hydrant at Camp Cooper, and the nearest one is not close enough to be acceptable for the fire marshal. And so in addition to the sleeping cabins, part of the sleeping cabin project is to install sprinkler systems for safety. To do that, we need to install a hydrant within the camp facility. And so included in our proposal is to do the $89,000 that would allow us to install that fire hydrant, which will allow this project to move forward and also future projects to be under the acceptance of the fire marshal. And with that, I'm happy to answer. Oh, sorry, I should know my own presentation. Future projects that are included in our facility master plan: expansion of our indoor classroom spaces and renovation of those spaces, renovation of our office space, and eventually we want to be able to provide sustainable food service with our own on-site commercial kitchen. So Lindsay will be talking about that at some point. That's several years away. And then to continue accessibility work with our pathways and buildings themselves. And so with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. I'm
Sure.
really excited to hear all these things that y'all are doing to Camp Cooper. My kids have as a parent who went to some camping trips in April, yeah, I'm happy to hear the changes that are coming. I'm excited for the kids that will get to experience that. And that's pretty much all I have to say.
Thank you.
I just have one question that's probably not directly relevant to what we're voting on today, but since it's in your presentation, I thought I'd get clarification.
Sure.
The bullet point where you list interactive and educational sustainable systems monitoring, what do you mean by that exactly?
So when, with solar panels, with air quality monitoring, with energy use, we want to be able to monitor the amount of energy that's being used. And so that can be a closed system that we operate, under a password protected system, either on our website or in an internal system within TUSD, so that we can provide teachers with access to the data of of the energy that we're saving at Camp Cooper.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I just have one thing. Sorry, Colin, we know each other, but so it's kind of hard for me to say this, but if we're looking at the bond and what we were just talking about as far as prioritizing HVAC, security and safety in classroom, and I think of some of the schools and the conditions they're in, this is a struggle for me. I'm just going to be honest.
So I think, the thing to remember is that the specific allocation for Camp Cooper within the bond package is $4.5 million. And so with the funding that has gone away, the fact that we don't need funding for the accessible pathway and the bathrooms and showers component of our project, we're actually coming in, even though this cost has gone up since the bond package was put together a couple of years ago, we're still under the total amount of allocation that is for Camp Cooper. And what I will say is that, with regards to the timing of this project, we have an opportunity, having just finished the bathrooms project with Chase Building. There's a lot of movement towards keeping the process going with our donors and with the contractors that we've been working with. And so I don't know if Dr. Carter wants to add anything to that, but we're within our Cooper Center site-specific budget that's in the bond package. And I think the timing is really just to allow us to continue to move forward with future projects.
I would also say that I would consider this classroom upgrades.
Desert classroom upgrades, I like that.
And
Yeah.
hands down, teachers come and teach in these spaces. I'm also a TUSD student who attended Camp Cooper myself as a child, and then went back with my own children, and it is the same exact place.
Yes,
and
it is.
has been no upgrades to it whatsoever. And so, yeah, it just, I think if you asked any single teacher in this district if they consider Camp Cooper a classroom space, they would say yes.
And that's correct. That's what I wanted to mention as we talked about priorities. This is exactly what we're talking about, improvements to classroom and learning spaces. So it actually fits too, and it's still under the overall budget.
Okay, so we don't have any more questions. I'd like to move to vote on this item.
I will second that.
Okay, second by Ms. Arvizu. Ms. Bourbois, can we have a roll call vote to approve and recommend to the governing board the Camp Cooper cabin upgrades and contingent fire hydrants bond proposal?
Jeffrey Anthony,
Yes.
Catherine Arvizu,
Yes.
Don Bell,
Yes.
Luis Gonzalez,
Aye.
Red Morrow,
Yes.
Peter Norquist,
Yes.
Tiffany Rogers,
Yes.
Delio Sotelo,
Yes.
Sophia Blue,
Yes.
Erica Miranda Carter.
Yes, motion passes.
Woohoo!
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
And I would love to go out to Camp Cooper and visit these cabins. So moving on to item 8.04, review and recommend to the governing board the replacement of classroom portables with permanent structures for Davis Bilingual Elementary Magnet School, Tucson High Magnet School, and University High School. Dr. C.
Thank you so much. And thank you guys for just being so patient with us and listening to all these various great changes. Damon's going to do this presentation, but I do want to let you guys know that we are working super, super hard to make sure that any of the things that we're proposing, especially the large projects, that we're getting buy-in from the schools and the regional assistant superintendents. That's super important. So we want to do our research and make sure that what we're thinking actually is something that's feasible for the classroom and for the schools. So we're going to do this later, but we were able to move up a whole bunch of meetings, and that's why I was like, where were we yesterday? And we even had a meeting with the summer school program, because they're in the midst of doing summer school, and this would be projects that you have to do in the summer. And so how would that change their planning? So that was even as early as 8 a.m. this morning. So we've been going a long time. So just wanted to let you guys know that we are getting buy-in and we are getting voice of the schools. Damon?
All right. So as Dr. Carter mentioned, we're looking at on this component is the improvements to classrooms and learning spaces. Just a quick agenda. We're going to talk a little bit about the background, the need, and then the sites impacted, and then the costs associated with those improvements. When we take a look at the background, the sites that were selected were specific to high enrollment, highly sought sites throughout the district, and we want to continue to meet that need and future enrollment demands at these sites throughout the district. And with this potential improvement, we can do that at these sites that were identified. When we talk about need, we talk about multiple things. These sites were, as I mentioned, were identified based on the enrollment. Each of these sites are over capacity right now based on the initial enrollment and the size of the site. These critical improvements are going to allow each of these sites to continue to expand and increase enrollment. More importantly, add that critical classroom and teacher space that's needed at these sites. Some of these teachers share rooms, and it's difficult to have continuity in learning practicum because they're continually switching classrooms. And the bigger picture is we want to improve the student experience as they're going through these classrooms. And I mentioned just right now, as the teachers move around, there's really no opportunity for these teachers to have footprints to learning on the walls in their particular areas. Because as the room changes, teachers all day, they don't have that opportunity to share, some of the work of the students because they're constantly moving. Then the other component is teachers sharing the rooms for critical courses, English, math, science, and history. And then going back to the teachers, really the big component is how they're evaluated. The Danielson framework for the teacher evaluation, one component is they measure them on their physical space. But it's difficult to do that when they don't have a physical space to be evaluated on because they're constantly moving, and that space is shared by multiple teachers. These improvements would allow for those teachers to have additional space specific to their classrooms so that they have a space of their own. As mentioned, these schools that were identified were Davis Bilingual Magnet School, Rincon University High, and Tucson High Magnet School. The initial costs associated with these improvements for quarter 3 and quarter 4 are about $3 million for these improvements. Do we have questions?
I do.
Yes.
At Rincon University, will that separate students entirely, or are we still keeping part of them in the old buildings?
So Rincon the space is going to be a continued space for both Rincon and UHS.
But we'll be getting rid of portables both?
Yes,
for both
the portables
schools?
the portables that are on the northern end of the campus will be removed. And that
So the ones by the
space,
baseball,
yes, by the baseball, there's
Field.
3 to 4 portables. That space is gonna get encumbered into the new space that gets developed.
are we losing the baseball? Are they losing the baseball field there?
No,
or-
so we're looking at other areas right now for these buildings internally. Again, as part of why we want to come here is we're evaluating different areas to where that footprint would work. More than likely, it's going to be a 2-story building similar to what was done in the center of the amphitheater. So we're looking at space, if this gets approved and then by the governing board, we're going to continue to do the assessments to find what footprint of that area works.
Okay. That's good to know. It's kind of exciting. My daughter had one of her classes in one of the portables, and I remember they had a lockdown. And she mentioned that, she said, yeah, we had a lockdown today, but we had nowhere to go. There's so many of us in there that we really can't do anything.
Right.
So, yeah, that's exciting to hear that that'll be happening there. Thank you.
Can you talk to me about Tucson High?
Yes, so Tucson High is specific. The assessment at Tucson High is going to be specific to the vocational building.
Okay.
Currently, the vocational building, it's a 3-story building, and the only portion that is being utilized is the centerpiece. And that's because 17 years ago, the state basically condemned that area because we didn't meet the minimum adequacy guidelines for heating and cooling. And on some of the photographs that you see, specific to the vocational building, it was evaporative cooling. And what happened, because the building was so old, the condensation created issues with the ceiling, and the ceiling started to pop off. That's why, those areas on the north and the south wings had to be closed off. So specific to Tucson High, the improvements are going to be at the vocational building, 2nd and 3rd floor on both east and west wings, so that the entire facility can be utilized. And that adds an additional 18 classrooms for the school.
What about that basement?
Basement is,
I'll revoke that comment.
yes.
So
So which one will go
what,
first?
I'm confused
Miss-
what the
Miss
$3 million
Ballas.
is going to cover.
So basically what this,
I'm a Tucson High Badgers.
sure. So I will answer your question again. The $3 million allows us to begin those assessments to move forward with the project. Again, as we mentioned in the presentation, these are Q3 and Q4. And Dr. Carter has always mentioned we want to be transparent. This allows us to get our feet off the ground to do the initial assessments, get the design complete, and then come back to you with the number. As far as priority, what our goal is to probably have them all going at the same time. Tucson High is probably going to go sooner because we don't have to do much design because we already have a structure there. The space is already there. It's a matter of renovating the existing building. So that is probably going to go a lot faster than the others, because the others are going to be a full-blown design where you have site, foundation, grading, and structural components, to where we don't have that at Tucson High. So more likely Tucson High will be one of the first, probably be the first one to go. Big time.
And I just want to comment, this is exciting for me because I was an administrator at both places. And so I know the need is there, and I often wonder why it's Tucson High, when they're going to finish that Voc building. So I think that's definitely money well spent. So that's exciting for me.
If there's no further questions, I'd like to motion to recommend to the governing board the replacement of classroom portables at these schools listed. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Bell. Ms. Barbara?
Jeffrey Anthony,
Yes.
Catherine Arvizu,
Yes.
Don Bell,
Yes.
Luis Gonzalez,
Aye.
Red Morrow,
Yes.
Peter Norquist,
Yes.
Tiffany Rogers,
Yes.
Delia Sotelo,
Yes.
Sophia Blue,
Yes.
Erica Miranda Carter.
Yes, motion passes. Very exciting things happening for our district. I'm excited to see all this work happening throughout the summer. Now moving on to 8.05, review and recommend to the governing board the replacement of domestic water and sewer lines at Catalina High School, Sabino High School, and Tucson High Magnet. Mr. Ballesteros?
Yes, I'll just wait till.
Sorry.
Excellent. So again, this topic is really taking a look at critical infrastructure throughout our sites. This is specific to our mainline domestic water lines, as well as our mainline sewers coming in to each of these sites. Again, the agenda is going to be very, very similar. Provide a brief background need and discuss the schools impacted and show some of the costs associated with these improvements. On background, our biggest thing is we've been very, very fortunate as a district that we passed this bond. So we want to continue to invest in our aging infrastructure. Everyone's aware these sites are very, very old. These are critical improvements for us to continue to provide the most functional and best learning environments to our students and staff as the school year, shuts down and begins. These are things that really constituents, the students, you don't see physically, but are a very, very vital component to a successful school year. So we talk about the need. So the sites that were selected, again, as we talk about the need, there's multiple components that go into the site assessment and their need. We take a look at work orders. We take a look at the existing conditions of the actual water lines and sewer lines. And again, the age is going to be a huge component to this. Sabino High School is 53 years old. We have Catalina High School at 67 years old. And then obviously Tucson High at about 118. These components that were installed centuries ago, again, they're going to be deteriorating. And these are the things that we take a look at is the life cycle of these components on an average is about 25 years. And then you begin to see severe corrosion, scaling, pitting, and then, leaking. We've been fortunate, like I said, to pass this bond, and we want to try to get in front of it because we want to be as proactive as possible so that we minimize the disturbance in the classroom. And these improvements will allow us to make these critical improvements sooner rather than later. Again, the schools that we were identified were Catalina High School, Sabino, and Tucson High. And as Dr. Carter mentioned earlier, we've been fortunate. We've met with all the sites. We've met with the regional superintendents to discuss, a plan in place on how we can target these improvements. The goal would be, if approved and approved by the governing board, we'd like to start, in the summer, early summer. We know these improvements are going to go into the school year, but we kind of take a lessons learned with Rincon. What we were able to do at Rincon is basically construct shut-off valves to every single building on the site so that if there's a leak, you don't have to shut main water off to the entire site. And unfortunately, when the sites were designed initially, that's how they were designed. And as we take a look and continue to do these assessments, we see that as being a huge advantage for us to get in and make that improvement initially so that we can target the priority buildings for the site, which we discuss with each, and then continue on with construction throughout the school year, but utilize those shut-off valves as components to where we do not disrupt, the schools during classroom time, and then do work over the weekend. As we discussed, these cost estimates are going to range. The total cost is about $6 million, and that's about $1.5 million to $2 million per site. Again, similar to the kitchen HVAC, each site is going to be a little different, because some sites, like Rincon High School, majority of the water lines were in tunnels, so we didn't have to excavate. So that was a huge advantage. Catalina has that component. Sabino has that component. Unfortunately, Tucson High doesn't. So there's going to be a lot of excavation being done. So that cost associated with it provides us a good indication as to, how soon and how quick we can get going on these projects during the summer. And they fall in line. We did a project with the State Facilities Department at Palo Verde High School 2 years ago, and that was about 1.4 million. And then we just did Rincon, and that one came in for the domestic water also was about 1.4 million. So we're seeing these costs very, very similar. Questions?
So this 6 million fully repairs and replaces?
Yes.
Okay.
Mainline sewer and mainline domestic water. Unfortunately, we're not going to go into the buildings because then that's full, basically starting all over again. What we're noticing is majority of the time, the mainline is the biggest issue because items get disposed of in there, and the mainline is what clogs everything up. Our lines, as I had mentioned in the presentation, become corroded and pitted, and then the calcium builds up. So a 6-inch line, say for example, a 6-inch sewer line right now, what we're noticing is probably about a 2-inch line because of the corrosion, calcium, and everything else that's associated with it. So our goal would be, to address all the main line and domestic main line going into the site.
Can you go ahead?
So these projects are expected to take place over the summer, correct?
Yes.
So where does that leave these schools if we're going to be shutting down their main water line? Do they have a backup plan or what?
Yes, and I think as I had mentioned earlier, Dr. Carter and myself have met independently with the sites, with the regionals, and this morning with Mr. Armenta to identify what happens during the summer school, where they're going to transfer summer school, how they're going to make that happen during the summer, during a time frame that we've identified.
How long is it expected to take, approximately?
So again, if we use Rincon as kind of a set point, that's about 4 to 5 months.
Thank you.
Can you really quickly talk to me about what was done at Tucson High last year, like last summer?
Yes. So last summer, what happened was on the main building, on the north end of campus, we had a mainline sewer that connects to the city on 5th Street. Unfortunately, we had a cable company come in and do a directional bore beginning at Euclid, and they bored through one of our lines. A directional bore isn't actual digging, but what a directional bore is, they'll dig. They made a big pit on Euclid, and say they went down 5-6 feet, and then they put a boring machine, and then you just drill a hole all the way across. So what happened there is they collapsed a line that was already compromised. So when we found out, when we excavated it and we saw the lines, that's why I gave you that example of a 6-inch sewer line actually being like 2 inches because of, the calcification.
And the vapes.
Yes, there was, and again, it's continuous throughout TUSD, the high schools. So.
Okay.
And quick
Just
question.
real quick, I want to just kind of mention some things to you guys in transparency, because we said we was going to be accountable, transparent, and collaborative. These are very complex projects, okay? There are a lot of what you call interdependencies. One thing depends on another. It's something that we take very seriously because it impacts or can impact instruction. So just some of the things I want you guys to be aware that's kind of the reason why we were trying to get as much information as possible as we're talking to schools and talking to the assistant principals and principals, things for consideration, summer programs, freshman academy, fine arts programs, relocation of staff, office relocation, rentals. So we are looking at multiple things to make these happen. So that's why when I tell you we're taking on a lot, we can't do anymore. I think we are at capacity. But the good news, and this also pertains to you, is that we have in the bond book 75 domestic, or right around 75 domestic water lines. And that one I am more concerned about. So we are having to be very creative, and this gives us a pattern. So after we figure out what works, then we can get faster and we can do more. But the difference between the health office upgrades and this is the sheer amount of time that it takes and the complexity that it takes. So that's why talking to the summer programs to say, okay, we need the building from May 26th through July 14th. I mean, so there's a lot of things that have to be considered. So I just want to make sure you guys are aware, but you can do it now or you can do when something breaks. And that's what we're trying to take a proactive approach versus not. But you're exactly right. The way we have it in the bond, there's a lot of work to do. And what I find interesting is in Tulsa, we had 10 weeks for summer to do projects. In Tucson, it's 8 weeks.
Thank you, Dr. Carter. Is there any further questions? Mr. Norquist?
Just a very brief question. I'm just curious about materials. Can
Yes.
you just tell us what materials are being replaced and what are they being replaced with? In
Yes,
terms of,
most
like,
definitely. So
metal, PVC, that kind of
yes,
thing.
most definitely. So majority of the systems that we're replacing obviously are, as we mentioned, 60, 70, 100 years old. So basically it's all cast iron that's in there. We're replacing it with NUPI. It's basically a high-density polyethylene pipe. The differences are the design life for NUPI pipe is a lot larger than a standard cast iron pipe. As we discussed, cast iron, you have 20 to 25 years when you begin to see deterioration. And the deterioration is more specific to the interior cavity of the pipe, not necessarily on the exterior. NUPI pipe, this is a pipe that has been used, it's been on the market for a while now, but it was specifically being used on Air Force bases because of the design life. NUPI pipe has anywhere between 30 to 35 year design life because it does not have the chemicals on that interior lining that promote corrosion over time. So we're going to be using the NUPI pipe is the pipe that we did at Rincon, and that's the pipe that we're going to continue to use for the mainline water replacements. Now, when you go into the sewer, we're looking at the same thing. We're taking a look at the design life of like a high density, it's called HDPE, high density polyethylene pipe, or NUPI, as well as just your standard PVC. The PVC, what we're seeing is on sort of the design life isn't as large as the NUPI. So more than likely, we're going to be using both for both sewer and domestic water.
Okay, so it sounds like you're investing a little bit more upfront so you can extend further life at the back
Yeah,
end,
it's
which
kind of like
sounds
everything. We want to make sure that
reasonable.
we take a look at the material and product and take a look at a cost-benefit ratio and take a look at the design life and see if it does extend that design life
Right.
more so that we don't have to come back 20 years from
Sooner.
now to do that.
Okay, great, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, so if there's no further questions, are y'all ready? Y'all feel confident, ready to vote? So I motion to recommend to the governing board the replacement of domestic water and sewer lines at Catalina, Sabino, and Tucson High Magnet School.
Second.
Second by Ms. Blue. Ms. Barboa, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Jeffrey Anthony,
Yes.
Catherine Arvizu,
Yes.
Don Bell,
Yes.
Luis Gonzalez,
Aye.
Red Morrow,
Yes.
Peter Norquist,
Yes.
Tiffany Rogers,
Yes.
Delia Sotelo,
Yes.
Sophia Blue,
Yes.
Erica Miranda Carter.
Yes. I am super excited, and I'm really proud of the work that we have done today as a committee. These are big projects, and it's just, my heart is happy. So thank you all. So let's go ahead and move on now to item 9.01, future meeting dates and agenda.
Can I just make one comment? I just want to, thank you guys as well, but letting you know that these are big projects and things are not going to go 100%. They never do. But what we're trying to do is do enough of the footwork up front so those things that end up happening the unknown unknowns that we can better deal with. And I think the key is communication. 90% of projects fail because of communication. So we want to make sure that you guys are aware so you can talk to your constituents about, as well as the schools and all that. The other thing I want to be transparent with you is the inflation is real. These projects that, if you look at the bond book, you can see that a lot of the projects the cost is a lot less than what it's going to actually take. So even on the HVAC, I'm seeing about $100,000 more than what the original, estimates were. So I want to keep you guys abreast. I'm providing you both the bond financial overview and also the PO report, so you can see what we're spending. But we'll keep you abreast as things happen, but it's definitely costing more to do than what was initially proposed.
Dr. C, one last question before we adjourn. It just came to me now. Whenever we get to the Rincon University, I think that's the only one that's getting a complete new building, correct? Will there be a groundbreaking ceremony or any type of?
Yes,
event?
that's my partner says yes.
We want news cameras out there. We want, all of Tucson to know big things that are happening in our district. So before we adjourn, I do want to thank you, Dr. Carter, for all the information. You're great about communicating, messaging, text, all that stuff. So thank you for that. Thank you to your team and everyone that came out to present today. Really appreciate the work that you all have done.
It definitely is a team effort. I can't come up with this from my staff, Denise, and also for purchasing with Yolanda and just everybody here. It takes a lot, and it's a lot of communication. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, so future meeting dates and agenda items. I think as future agenda items, depending on whether the board approves our recommendation for the new member, we may have the charter revision. And as far as that, does anybody else have anything they'd like added on the agenda? No. Okay, our next meeting, we will be skipping December, and we are scheduled to meet January 16th through 2025. Same time? Alrighty then, so I would like to get motion to. Okay, so I'm going to motion to adjourn at 2:57. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Meeting adjourned at 2:57. Thank you, everyone.